Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing on Canto 1, Chapter 10, Verse 4, and the chapter is entitled The Departure of Lord Krishna to Dwarka, and we will start with the opening prayers. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiraha Vanachari Yamuna Tiraha Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiraha Vanachari Yamuna Tiraha Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parigvacharya Stota to Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parigvacharya Stota to Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mai Pradam Ki Jai Jagnapuri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Tinamani Namaste Krishna Padaya. Prabhupada Shidaatmane Sri Guru Karana Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namani. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayam Namaskritya Naram Chevam Narottamam Devam Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nashta Prayashta Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. So as we mentioned that we will be speaking from Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse 4, and the chapter is entitled The Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. And without further delay, we will start on the verse. I will chant the verse 3 times, and I ask devotees to please chant after me. Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dukha Mahi Sishi Chusmar Vrajan Gava Paya Sodasvatir Muda. Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dukha Mahi Sishi Chusma Vrajan Gava Paya Sodasvatir Muda. Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dukha Mahi Sishi Chusma Vrajan Gava Paya Sodasvatir Muda. Devotees can chant, please.
Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dugamahi Sishi Chusma Vrajangavaha Paya Sodhasvatir Muda.
Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dugamahi Sishi Chusma Vrajangavaha Paya Sodhasvatir Muda. Hare Krishna.
Kama Varsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dukamahi Sishu Jasma Vrajana Kava Paya Swata Swati Muda. Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, dear Krishna.
Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Dugamahi Shishichu Sma Vrajan Gavaha Payasa Udhavasvati Mudaha.
Oh, sorry, I was on unmute. I was unmuted. I apologize. So let me start the verse again. Kamam Vavarsha, Kamam, everything needed. Vavarsha was showered. Parjanya, rains. Sarva, everything. Kama, necessities. Dugha, producer. Mahi, the land. Sishi Chusma, moisten. Vrajan, pasturing grounds. Gavaha, the cow. Payasa Udhasvati, due to swollen milk bags. Muda, because of a joyful attitude. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. Purport: the basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. The necessities of human society are food, grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood, etc. One requires all these items to fulfill the material needs of the body. Certainly, one does not require flesh and fish or iron tools and machinery. During the regime of Maharaj Yudhisthira, all over the world there were regulated rainfalls. Rainfalls are not in the control of the human being. The heavenly king, Indradev, is the controller of rains, and he is a servant of the Lord. When the Lord is obeyed by the king and the people under the king's administration, there are regulated rains from the horizon. And these rains are the causes of all varieties of production on the land. Not only do regulated rains help ample production of grains and fruits, but when they combine with astronomical influences, there is ample production of valuable stones and pearls. Grains and vegetables can sumptuously feed a man and animals, and a fatty cow delivers enough milk to supply a man sumptuously with vigor and vitality. If there is enough milk, enough grains, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, enough jewels, then why do the people need cinemas, houses of prostitution, slaughterhouses, etc.? What is the need of an artificial, luxurious life of cinema, cars, radio, flesh, and hotels? Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? Has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and the war fields at the whims of a particular man? It is said here that the cows used to moisten the pasturing land with milk because their milk bags were fatty and the animals were joyful. Do they not require, therefore, proper protection for joyful life by being fed with a sufficient quantity of grass in the field? Why should men kill cows for their selfish purposes? Why should men not be satisfied with grains, fruits, and milk, which combined together can produce hundreds and thousands of palatable dishes? Why are there slaughterhouses all over the world to kill innocent animals? Maharaj Parikshit, grandson of Maharaj Yudhisthira, was touring his vast kingdom, saw a black man attempting to kill a cow. The king at once arrested the butcher and chastised him sufficiently. Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of the poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Are not the animals of a country's citizens also? Then why are they allowed to be butchered in organized slaughterhouses? And are these the signs of equality, fraternity, and nonviolence? Therefore, in contrast with the modern advanced civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaj Yudhisthira is far superior to a so-called democracy in which animals are killed, and a man less than an animal is allowed to cast votes for another less than animal man. We are all creatures of material nature. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is said that the Lord himself is the seed-giving father, and material nature is the mother of all living beings in all shapes. Thus, Mother Material Nature has enough foodstuff, both for animals and for men, by the grace of the Father, Almighty Sri Krishna. The human being is the elder brother of all other living beings. He is endowed with intelligence more powerful than animals for realizing the course of nature and indications of the Almighty Father. Human civilizations should depend on the production of material nature without artificially attempting economic development. To turn the world into a chaos of artificial greed and power only for the purpose of artificial luxuries and sense gratification. This is but the life of dogs and hogs. Om Agena Timirandhyasya Gena Gena Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The translation again. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. This is a very powerful verse by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, when I was reading this verse for 2 days, actually off and on, preparing for the class, after reading this amazing purport by Srila Prabhupada, I started to think, why is life so crazy? Why do we make our life so complicated? Why is there so much greed? It's just like, just by reading this verse, it should literally convince us to live a very simple life, simple living, higher thinking. Why are we so attracted to man-made machinery and gadgets and, high-tech stuff and, advanced electronic devices, why, right? Because we are becoming lazy. As Kali Yuga is progressing, we are becoming more and more lazy and underworked, and I was like, this is really, really sad. So going back to the verse and the translation, it's very clear that Maharaj Yudhishthira was a pure devotee of the Lord, no doubt about that. Not only was he a pious king, but because of his piety, because of his surrendered mood, because of his detachment to from the kingdom of Hastinapur, he did everything because Krishna said so. For someone, I was thinking about this a few days ago, over the course of time, listening to Bhagavatam classes, how Srila Prabhupada was mentioning his different purports and how the speakers were giving classes and mentioning that Maharaj Yudhishthira, left to him, he wouldn't have accepted the kingdom. Excuse me. He in fact, he wanted to give up and take sannyas and go to the forest. But because the kingdom needed a pious king, a rightful king, a righteous king, and Krishna knew that there's none other than Maharaj Yudhishthira because he was the son of Dharma. Maharaj Yudhishthira complied. And then I started thinking, but, generally speaking, in this material world, material nature, human nature, is when we are told to do something that we don't like to do, it's very hard to comply 100%. At least for me, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't like to do what I'm doing. I'm not attached to it. I don't want to do it, but because I've been told I gotta do it, kind of a thing. And we go in doing or carrying out that action in the mood of half-heartedness, as they call it, or like, I'll just do what I can and, whatever, right? Like we kind of have one foot in, one foot out. But Maharaj Yudhishthira, despite not want, he didn't want the kingdom. He didn't want to be the king. He didn't want anything. But because the Supreme Personality of Godhead said so, he accepted the kingdom as a service to please the Lord. And because he accepted the service to please the Lord, he did not hold back in his piety. He did not hold back in his service. He did not hold back in his dharma. He did not hold back in any of his qualities. He gave everything that he had. And one of it was his piety, because he was such a pious, righteous king that Krishna supplied everything abundantly. So my realization from this point was, when we are asked to do service, it's very important that we take it very seriously and give our 100%, not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Just like Maharaj Yudhishthira did, because as they say in America, like when you put yourself out there, results reciprocate. So it's very important that we really take service very seriously. I was listening to a lecture by my spiritual master 2 days ago on devotional service. And he was saying that when we are given a service by the spiritual master or by the devotee, a senior devotee, that service is coming directly from the Lord. Yes, it may be going through a medium, but it's coming directly from the Lord. And we should take it very seriously, because that is the service given by the Lord. And we should give our 100%, not half-heartedness, not 30, 70%, not 40, 60%, 100%. And when we give ourselves and when we give everything that we have for the service, Krishna reciprocates. To the extent that we give, to that degree, the Lord reciprocates. And in Maharaj Yudhishthira's case, he gave everything, and Krishna supplied everything abundantly. It didn't say that Krishna supplied to a certain degree. So he supplied, Prabhupada said, actually Prabhupada used the word in one of his lecture transcription, that Krishna supplied everything abundantly. So that was my realization, how important it is that when we are given a service, we should give 100% and even more. Again, the point that I was listening to a lecture by my spiritual master, we should give all and even more and expand it to please the Lord. Another point that Srila Prabhupada mentioned here that is very important, I felt, that he talked about the happiness of the cow and the amount of milk the cows give when they are happy. The cows can give, and why is that so? Because the cows were able to give abundant supply of milk because they live a fearless life during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Fearless. Right? Like if we go to certain dhams in US, I'm sure even in India, right? When we see the cows and we see the peacocks and we see, the animals, like in New Vrindavan, Gitanagri, wherever, when we see the animals, running around, right? They run around fearless because they know that devotees will not hurt them. They will not kill them. So they run around fearless. But if you go to the streets, the cities, the metropolitan areas, out of the holy places, and you see the animals, they are like trying to, walk on the side of the street because they are afraid that someone's going to, a motorcycle or a car is going to hit them. So the cows during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira was able to give abundant supply of milk because they lived a fearless life. And when I read this purport, this part of the purport reminded me of breastfeeding mothers. We were told, and I breastfed both my daughters, so I have experience from that. When a mother is not calm, is not relaxed, is not feeling safe or at peace or happy, the flow of milk gets restricted. I have experienced that with both my children when I was breastfeeding them. And I remember when I was busy trying to do something, probably trying to, do some service on the housework or something. And all of a sudden, one of my kids, wanted milk, and when they were still breastfed, and I had to stop something and then hurriedly breastfeed my daughter. I noticed two things. The flow of the milk is restricted, and at the same time, the child that is breastfeeding is what they call antsy, because the energy of the mother while breastfeeding the child carries through the milk and goes into the child. And the baby is very perceptive that the energy of the mother. So, and I remember whenever I would breastfeed my kids, and they were young, and they wouldn't sit still. They'll be very, very antsy. And then I realized I had to be calm. So I had to step away from whichever room and go to my bedroom and just breathe and calm and relax. And then they would, my daughter would breastfeed very calmly. So the same thing with cows, they do have a glands in their body that secretes milk that feeds all of us, humankind. And that is because they live in when they live in a fearful, sad, depressed, and hurt and anxiety environment, it's very hard to produce the milk, just like a breastfeeding mother. So it's so important how, when I was reading this also, it's so important how mothers are to be taken care of, protected, and it's so important for actually mothers, if possible, sometimes because of health challenges, sometimes it's very hard for mothers to breastfeed, but it's very important, if we can, for mothers to breastfeed their children as long as they can, as at least 2 years, 1 year, at least 1 year. I breastfed my first daughter for 3 years, and my second one for about 2 years, until I had to go to work, and then everything stopped. But it's very important, because the breastfeeding of the mother with the child really creates a bond of security, a bond of safety, love, a lot of emotions, a lot of connection, very, very important. So the same thing applies to cows, because why? The cow is our mother. Unfortunately, we live in a society where cows are being killed, as your prophet said, eaten for meat, slaughter of cows, popping up here and there. But unfortunately, because of that, there is no happiness in Kali Yuga. In fact, your prophet said killing of the mother cow is the most sinful activity. Even His Holiness Chandramali Swami said that the reason Kali Yuga is going where it's going, the reason this world is becoming so degraded, the reason there's so many demonic activities and what have you, is because mother cow is not protected, which is the most sinful activity. And when that happens, how can we expect joyfulness in this world? We can't. And people don't have a joyful attitude. They don't have joyfuls. They may have temporary joyfulness, for a minute or two, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. But if we read from the Shastra, from the verse Prabhupada said during Maharaj Yudhishthira's time, it was continuous joyfulness. Because the leader, Maharaj Yudhishthira, was a pious king, and we don't have it in today's time. So we cannot expect joyfulness in Kali Yuga. Because everywhere we look around, we're going to see that. We're going to see unhappiness, we're going to see sinful activities, because joyfulness doesn't exist. It's just dwindling away. And when we don't have joyfulness in our lives or just in this world, then it's very hard to live simply. Because why? The greed is so high, right? Srila Prabhupada so nicely mentions here in the verse, right? What is the need for flesh and fish and iron tools and machinery, right? We just need grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood. What's the need of fish and flesh and iron tools and machinery? But that's what we are so used to, right? Our lives right now are completely based on iron tools and machinery, electronic gadgets, devices, this and that. And not only that, when there's greed, it's very hard to stop it, because greed gives more greed. And we live in a society, where greed gives more greed, because we are not used to simple life. We are not used to being, being joyful with simplicity. We equate happiness, joyfulness with, if I have this status, then I'm going to be happy. If I have this much money in the bank account, then I'm going to be happy. If I have this many gadgets, I'm going to be happy. If I have this many, what have you, anything material amenities, that equates to happiness. But here we are reading the purport, that doesn't equate to happiness. Simplicity equates to happiness. Simplicity equates to joyful attitude, joyfulness. We have seen pictures of Krishna with the cows, Krishna milking the cows, Krishna taking the cows to the pasture. We've even heard, not only seen pictures, but we've even heard pastimes, right? Of how when Krishna cares for the mothers of Vrindavan, how Krishna protects women. Why? Because women are to be considered as mothers. Srila Prabhupada clearly has said, not once, but many, many times as an instruction to his devotees, to the devotees. Besides a man's wife, all other women are to be considered as mothers. So it is our duty to protect the mothers, right? Where the children, the mothers, the brahmanas, and the elders. It's our duty to protect the mothers. So Srila Prabhupada so nicely explains in one of his lecture transcription that is why we have the Krishna conscious movement. And our Krishna conscious movement is not a sentimental movement. It is not a sentimental movement. Srila Prabhupada says our Krishna conscious movement, quoting him verbatim, takes care of all around social organization. So if we take a moment and we think about it, our Krishna conscious movement takes care of all aspects of life. Our Krishna conscious movement teaches us the first and foremost, which is spiritual life, sadhana bhakti, vaidhi bhakti, devotional practices, devotional service, everything that relates to spiritual life. Our Krishna conscious movement teaches us about personal life, how to live a simple life, how to live a life of detachment, right? Our Krishna conscious movement teaches us how to live a social life in terms of association, right? Our Krishna consciousness movement teaches about physical life. And we've heard health comes first. Health is wealth. Without good health, how can we serve? Our Krishna consciousness teaches about mental life, mental health, the 6 enemies of the mind, and the anarthas, and all that we know from the Bhagavad-Gita. Our Krishna consciousness movement also teaches us about family life, how to raise children, grihastha life, the vanaprastha life, the sannyas life, the brahmacharya life. It teaches us all about life. It also teaches us how to protect our cows. So Srila Prabhupada says our Krishna consciousness is it's an all-rounded movement. It addresses the 4 orders of life, which is the brahmachari, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, and the sannyas. And it also addresses the 4 classes of life, the brahmana, the kshatriya, the vaishya, and the sudra. And if we look at our Krishna conscious movement, we have all this, the 4 orders of life and the 4 classes of life. And this is needed. Srila Prabhupada mentions, if we look in the, for example, if you look at a business or a company or the government or the parliament, there's so many departments. And it takes all these departments to execute the duties in an orderly fashion. Because the government has different departments, right? A company has different departments, the HR department, the IT department, the marketing department, the administrative department, the accounting department. There's so many departments. And it takes all these departments to run a company successfully. Like our body, our body, we have different departments. The hand doesn't do the function of the leg. The leg doesn't do the function of the brain. So we too have different departments. So just like in the Krishna conscious movement, in all the services that we have, in all what we do in ISKCON, we have the 4 orders of life and the 4 orders and the 4 classes of life, so that the movement can be executed nicely in an orderly fashion. And Srila Prabhupada said that is why Krishna is a supreme Godhead. And I really liked how he said this. And I want to share with all of you, because that really made me put a big smile on my face. Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is a supreme Godhead because he's the head God. He used the word head God. He said he's the head God of all the demigods. So he says that is why Krishna is a supreme Godhead, because he's the head God. So these are needed. This is very needed. So in a very nice way, Srila Prabhupada says, what is proper civilization? Proper civilization is we live simply. We make our life simple. If we have land, we make use of the land. If we have, if we don't have land, then we live a life that's simple. We don't need to add so much to a life. Srila Prabhupada has said, simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated, right? And proper civilization, the main point that, one of the main points, that I got from this purport is proper civilization means to live within our means, to live within our quota, to live within our boundaries and not go out of our boundaries because of greed, because to satisfy our senses, right? Just live within our means. We don't have to go out of our means, because that means it's going to bring problems down the road. And when we live out of our boundaries, when we live out of our quota, we face a lot of problems. Not only do we face a lot of problems, greed starts increasing. Not only does it start, but it continues to grow. And why? Because we are so caught up in the life of trying to meet my needs, right? We get so caught up. Why not me? She has it. Why can't I have it? He has it. Why can't I have it? Oh, I have to live this way because they live that way. No, we live within our quota and we make it very simple. And that is proper civilization, is how can we, live within our means, live within our quota, live within our boundaries, and life is very simple. As soon as we go out of our quota, out of our means, then we start, scratching our head. How I'm going to get this one done? How I'm going to get that one done? How I'm going to pay this bill? I'm going to solve that problem, right? We go out because we stepped out of the boundaries. So it's very important that we try to live within our quota, because that's how we can live a very simple life. And when life is simple, everything is joyful. less problems. We don't invite too many problems. When life is simple, then everything is simple, So this was my thoughts that I gathered from this wonderful verse by purport by Srila Prabhupada, how it's so important that in order to have a simple life, one should be happy with their simple life and live within their means, live within their quota, not to go out of their quota, and appreciate what we have, right? And just protect the four classes of life, and protect the the four orders of life. We have it in our system, and appreciate that Krishna consciousness movement is not just a sentimental religious movement. It's an all-rounded movement, Srila Prabhupada said. It's an all-rounded movement that addresses every aspect of life. Sometimes we get so caught up that we forget that we think it's only to become Krishna conscious. Yes, that is definitely there, but there's more beyond that. It addresses every aspect of life, so much so that if we start to see that Krishna consciousness movement is an all-rounded movement that addresses every aspect of life, then Krishna consciousness doesn't become a part-time job, a part-time life. It doesn't become a double life. It becomes our existence. It becomes our existence, our identity, and we embrace it wholeheartedly as and know that this is what I want. This is me. And so this was my thoughts that were coming to my mind, that as I was preparing for the class, I thought that, it's a nice topic to share and discuss. But I would like to ask devotees, if you have any thoughts, any comments, please do jump right. Yes, Mother Gita. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble
Accept mine, Mother.
to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. When I was hearing you read the purport, I was like, uh-oh, there's so much to talk about. But thank you so much for a wonderful lecture.
Thank you, Mother.
You were talking about boundaries. So how does one draw the boundaries to make sure that the mind is not playing the trick?
Mother, that's a very nice question, because whenever devotees ask me that question, I always think about my husband because I remember the first few years of our marriage, for a woman, and that too newly married, and women in general, we always want, as opposed to need. and my husband really helped me in the first few years of our marriage. And he would always ask me, do you want or do you need? So I and that really, played on my mind, and that helped me to really I trying to think of the right word. That helped me to really assess myself, to see, why do I want it, or do I really need it? Now, is it because I want to, make myself feel good, so I can feel good when I'm with others, or I can be like at their level, or because I really need, because I don't have it? And sometimes I feel that for me, I know especially that helped me a lot, Mother, and so much so that over the years, it has helped me to really ask myself, do I need or do I want? And then and it has helped me to say yay or nay, like pretty quickly. Like I know my sister would tell me that I am pretty much a low maintenance person because I'm very quick to say, nah, I don't want it. But I think it's very helpful for us to ask ourselves, do I want it or do I need it? And when we are in doubt, because sometimes the mind says, no, switch the want to a need, then it's very important that we talk it out with someone else and says, do I really want it or do I really need it? And help someone to help us go through that analyzing stage to help us see, no, you can do without it. And then be comfortable to know, yes, I can do without it because I have this. But yeah, I hope that helped, Mother. If someone else, if anyone else would like to share their thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother. Any other questions from devotees? Any other thoughts? Would like to hear your takeaway from this amazing class, because I find it so important, how important it is to live within our means and our quota, because the material world, not right now, it has been in Kali Yuga, it's degradingly progressing to make us live out of our boundaries. I know, I think I've mentioned this before, but whenever I'm watching something on the TV on YouTube and they throw these ads, and every time I see this ad of at home, this new store, drives me crazy. It drives me nuts, because it's all about putting us in debt. Oh, go get a new flower pot. Oh, go get a new this. Oh, it's like and that's what they are meant. These material amenities and attractions are meant to put us in debt, meant to tie us up in this material craziness. It's meant to gratify our senses, and it's meant to increase our attachment. And we have to really train ourselves every day, if we can, or as often as possible, and actually also associate. I find that very helpful. I think that's also one thing that really helped me, because when I joined Krishna consciousness, we were living in Gitanagara, and we hardly had much, and living with other devotees, and who were happy. And I remember in Gitanagari, this was in the early 90s, we hardly had much. We had little, but we were joyful. We were happy, and we were enthusiastic, and we were skipping around, meaning devotees, all of us, and many of the grihastas there didn't have much. We'll be lucky. I know for me at that time in Gitanagari, I think I only owned 2 or 3 saris, and that's it. But I was not the only one. There were other devotees who didn't have much, but we were happy. We were doing service together. We were, associating together. We were doing so much stuff together. It was it was very, very nice. And that convinced me, being in that environment for so many years, that you can be happy with little. It's just that we have to always ask ourselves, what is the most important thing? And also, I think also when we associate with devotees who have that kind of a mindset, where they can help us to be content in simplicity, to help us to be happy in simplicity, that rubs off, we develop that same appreciation and that lifestyle. And I think that also helped me to just being in that environment with other devotees who were happy with little, and just enjoying doing devotional service and associating. Yeah, that helped. Any other questions from devotees? Any other takeaway? Any other points, reflections? Would love to hear some of your inputs or feedback of how we all deal with living within our quota, or how we handle living within our quota, how we handle between needs and wants. Would like to hear some feedback, some thoughts. Quiet morning. Okay. If there isn't any feedback and thoughts or reflection, Just a humble reminder that this evening we have our Bhagavad-Gita circle at 6 o'clock, and we are in chapter 4. The chapter is entitled The Transcendental Knowledge. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So please do join us at 6 o'clock this evening for our Bhagavad-Gita circle reading program. Until then, have a wonderful day. Vantrakrapatibhyascha kripasindubheva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hari Bol.